I was born the eldest son in a Roman Catholic Latino family. I was a good Catholic boy. I loved church. It was nothing for me to attend Mass 2 or 3 times a week, as well as being on a few committees. When I was 18, I remember talking with one of the priests about going into the priesthood, but Mama and Grandma were adamant. No. I was the oldest son, and the expectations were clear. I was to get married, have kids, and carry on the family name. And I really wanted to be the son they wanted me to be. I did. But when I tried, I never seemed to get it right. I would watch and mimic my male cousins, but I never liked doing what they did. I wanted to play dress-up with my female cousins. I was constantly scolded for wanting to make tortillas with Grandma or spending too much time in the kitchen with Mama and my aunts rather than being in the living room watching football. I prayed and prayed like a good Catholic boy for God to fix me. I asked God to help me be the boy I was supposed to be. And as I got older, I prayed for God to help me become a man. I didn't want to let my family down. At 22, I came to the realization that God refused to answer my prayers, so I stopped talking to God. I became a lost child and then a wild child. I no longer had a guidepost, nor did I want one. If God ignored me, why should I care? I'm surprised I lived to be 30 years old. I realized I wasn't dead when I woke up in detox. I knew my life had to change. I came out of detox determined to stop drinking and to prove to myself, my family, and the world I was a worthy eldest son. And within a few years, I appeared to be the picture of success. I had married an incredible woman, and I was working in law enforcement. As a corrections officer, I would finally prove my manhood. I practiced walking and talking like a real man, and the uniform and badge helped. They helped me live into a role, for it was really a facade. It took every ounce of my strength to play that role every day, and it took a toll on my mental health. Despite my original dream of my dream of attempting to be the eldest son, it simply rekindled my relationship with alcohol. Of course, I blamed my wife and my job for how I felt because I wanted to live in denial. Living into my true self, that wasn't something I could handle. And after 8 years of marriage, I was unsurprised and secretly relieved when my wife asked me for a divorce. And I don't blame her for not wanting to be married to someone who was always angry and drunk half the time. After the divorce, I went into therapy to figure out what was wrong with me, for I walked away from everything I worked so hard to achieve. We had new cars in the garage. We had a big house. We had good jobs. And I walked away from it all. What was wrong with me? And with the help of a caring therapist, I came to the realization there wasn't anything wrong with me. I just had to finally face the fact that I was not the eldest son. I was and always had been the eldest daughter. I've always been Nicole. And the first person I called was my cousin Kelly. Guess what? I know who I am now. I've always been a woman. I'm going to transition and live as a woman. And Kelly was very supportive. But she asked me a very serious question. What about your mom and your work? Mom and work. Mom was still very Roman Catholic, and I was now working as a state parole officer. What about mom and work? Amazingly enough, I received a significant amount of support from the leadership of the Division of Parole. I moved into an administrative position for a couple of years, which allowed me to transition and not have much contact with the public. And to my great joy, I found my way back to the church. Early in my transition, I met another trans woman who was also in law enforcement. We had a lot in common, so we became good friends. I told her of my desire to rekindle my faith, and she told me about a welcoming Lutheran church not far from where I lived. I was incredibly nervous the first time I went to a service, but these people were lovely. They welcomed me with open arms, and you know you're part of a church when they invite you to be on a committee. I found a church home. I became an active member of this Lutheran congregation. And after many years without prayer, there I was once again 2 or 3 times a week, praying and talking to God. Then early one morning during a service, I watched the pastor lift the host and speak the words of institution. "This is my body given for you." I knew I had to be at the altar speaking those words. I knew I was called to be a pastor. And I was astounded that the church agreed with me. Over the next 5 years, I navigated the daunting process. And I was ordained in 2019. At that ceremony, there were 300 people packed into a sanctuary designed to hold 250. And it was my own beloved mother and my 2 sisters who placed the symbol of ordination, a red stole, around my shoulders. I believe in all my heart that God created me to be a trans woman. God had not turned away from me when I was a child when I prayed to be a boy. God simply loved me until I got on the path of becoming the person I am meant to be. And since completing transition in 2005, I have earned 2 master's degrees. And for over a decade, I worked as a licensed professional counselor specializing and working with trans and non-binary individuals. But currently, I'm devoting my entire professional life to my spiritual leadership as the pastor of Epiphany Lutheran Church in Denver. As a therapist and a pastor, I've had the honor of walking with so many beautiful trans and non-binary people in their journeys of self-discovery and self-actualization. I've worked with people who wanted to die because they felt no hope and no path forward in the gender they were assigned at birth. I've sat with them, tears streaming down their cheeks as they try to form the words between sobs, words I remember uttering to myself so many times before. I don't want to disappoint anyone, but I can't be who they want me to be. And it is devastating to read all the lies spread on social media about people who are transgender. And how therapists and the medical establishment are forcing kids to transition when all we are trying to do is help alleviate the pain of living a lie. For example, puberty blockers can give a young person the gift of time to truly discern who they are and have the space to blossom and bloom. And I stand here holding a red rose in my hand. A rose represents so much to me. Dad loved the roses he planted in the yard, and I oftentimes place red roses on Mama's grave. And I was born on December 12th, the feast day of La Virgen de Guadalupe. Now, this feast celebrates the appearance of Mary, the mother of Jesus, to a native man who proved the miracle of the apparition by all the roses he was able to gather on the barren hill of Tepeyac. The story is much too long to relate now, but suffice it to say, Guadalupe is revered with love and devotion by millions. And to me, she represents the love of a mother for her children. And I share that love with dozens of trans and non-binary individuals around this country that call me Tia Nikki or even Mama Nikki. The love of God for each of us is transformative. And the love of parents for their children who transition their gender, it's life-giving. I know my parents were very confused when I came out as a woman, and Mama was very unhappy. She said, "I love you, but don't come over here dressed like that, and I'll only call you by the name I gave you." So early in my transition, I would wear baggy clothes and slick my hair back to abide by Mama's wishes. In the middle of my transition, Dad's cancer returned. He wanted to remain at home with the help of hospice. And it was a surprise when Mama had a seizure and ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks. I moved into my parents' house and took care of Dad, and my sisters took care of Mama's needs. And one day, I realized Daddy was calling me Hita. He was calling me his daughter. I asked him why he started calling me Hita, and he said, "I finally see you happy." Well, as happy as I could be watching Dad struggle. But once Dad started calling me Hita, Mama, my sisters, and the rest of the family, except for one uncle, there's always one, they followed Dad's lead. Dad accepted me as his daughter because he wanted to see me happy. Mama loved me enough not only to see me as her daughter, but she forgave me for becoming a Lutheran. Mama, Daddy, my family accepted me for the child of God I was created to be. Let us strive together to be worthy of our children, to believe them when they tell us who they are. I truly believe everything imparts God's grace. I don't believe in exceptions to God's love. How could the beauty of creation ever be wrong? All our children are beautiful, and we must strive, for we are called by God to walk with them as they blossom and bloom. Thank you.